Yo, what's going on, guys? So I'm recording this video and I'm not editing things, right? I'm just gonna upload it as is, so enjoy however it gets uploaded. But anyway, so recently we've been talking about, like, content creators as a whole, have been talking about how the game isn't gonna die. The game isn't gonna die. Sega's not doesn't care about the game. Sega does care about the game, and it goes to show that with them hiring new staff, with them trying to continue to build the game, and it is what it is. They want the game to succeed, right? We start looking at things like the most recent headline news that we're gonna get in a couple days, because that's on October 5th, and that's literally next week. We start seeing this. We start seeing how they're like, hey, they're gonna show us Bouncer. They're even gonna start looking at the new region. We're gonna start looking at the Halloween event, which I honestly think it's gonna be more of the same, right? The Rappy Como page, when we start looking at the Rappy Como page, they even start saying that they're going to be talking about the changes in management. And I think this might be something that's, domestic only streams, because they have two different versions of the stream. They have one that's my bird in the background. They have one that's domestic, and then they have the global one, which is why these are all pre-recorded now, as opposed to the live broadcast that they used to do before. It has nothing to do with COVID anymore. And it's really interesting, because it's like, all right, we want to know more, but when you start looking at like the actual stream itself, right now the actual YouTube channel, when it comes to the video, has a 66 to 367 dislike to like ratio, and it's like, holy shit, they've even disabled the chat, which that's unheard of. They have never done that before. So people are clearly not happy, and they're seeing it. They actively are seeing it. Right? And people are changing their reviews on Steam. Oop, wrong button. People are changing their, their reviews on Steam, and go for it, man. Do what you have to do, because if your voices are not heard, then at the end of the day, then we're not going to get the game that we know this can be. We've seen where the Phantasy Star franchise has been. We know where it can go. We see the groundwork that they've done. Everyone sees it. They're like, damn, this could be a really good game. They just need to add more to it. And but we've been talking about that's beating a dead horse with a stick. It's a useless conversation, right? We shouldn't have to make 30,000 videos talking about that anymore, because at this point you're literally having the same conversation over and over, and it gets boring, especially when every content creator right now is literally going out there making the same videos, because there's nothing to cover when it comes to the game. We're sticking with the game because we have faith in it. We're sticking with the game because there's a lot of us who are like, damn, we really enjoy this. We grew up with this, or damn, we really enjoy this, and this is a game that has a ton of potential, and we don't want to see that potential get squandered. And we want people to understand that this game has issues, but it's still, we still play it for a reason. But when I start looking at that, and this is where I actually wanted to make the video about, I start looking at like things like today, or at the time of recording this video, New World released, right? And there's also been a decline in every other MMO that has ever existed. And we're gonna ignore Final Fantasy 14 and like other major titles like World of Warcraft or RuneScape, because they're not in more recent releases. We're gonna talk about something that's been going on in the MMO community for a while, right? So we look at Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis, and as of 17 minutes ago, there was 1,653,000 players playing. Luckily, interesting enough, it's still the same amount of players when I refresh. But a lot of the reasons why this game, didn't exactly hit the mark was because the game rushes you to end game. There's a story, there's a world, there's all of this, but it's very bare bones. And whenever you think of an MMO, you have to be intrigued by the world. You want to be a part of that world, because there needs to be some sense of connection, especially if I'm going to be playing this game for long periods of time. All right. It's not a PvP MMO. It's a game where I actively want to be a part of the world, which is what made the Phantasy Star franchise so awesome in the first place, is because your character was a part of the world. And with New Genesis, it kind of feels very different. Like, it feels like my character isn't even a part of the world. I'm just there alongside the world as it exists. I don't even know what's going on in the world. I don't know what the full story is. I'm just going with the flow. And that's a little bit different when you start seeing things like that's happened in Phantasy Star 1, 2, 3. I've never played 4. Phantasy Star Online 1 and 2, Universe. You know, that's very different. And that's a problem. And then we look at games like Sword of Legends, and I remember MMO Byte talking about this recently in another one of his videos, but it got me thinking that every point that he made in his videos, it was actually true, right? The problem with a lot of MMOs nowadays is because they don't focus on the story lore. They don't make you feel a part of the world itself. So they feel bland, right? They feel there's a word that I'm looking for, but I can't remember. Anyway, but they don't make you feel like you're proud of being in that world. Like when I invest in my character, I'm like, damn, that's my character, right? So you start seeing games like Sword of Legends Online. It peaked at 18,000 players when it released in July. And, you know, now it's at less than 1,000. It's at less than 1,000. That's unheard of for an MMO that has launched this early on. I mean, it's doing worse than NGS. That's crazy. You know, but the game has a problem where it rushes you to the end game. And once you get to the end game, there's relatively nothing there for you to do. And once you get to PvP, right, the PvP is, again, more of the same nonsense, and it's very exploitative, right? It's kind of like Blade and Soul PvP, where at the beginning of that game's life cycle, if you were a Kung Fu master, yo, you're good. Or a good Kung Fu master, I should say, right? And that's kind of how that was. Or when you played Black Desert Online, if you were a whale and you played Striker, then obviously that you were going to be really, really good at PvP as well. Like, obviously things have changed since that in Black Desert Online, but again, that's a different story for the day. But then you have games like Blush Unleashed, where as of 22 minutes ago, this game has 6,752 players. Now that is again a huge drop from the 76,000 players that it had on its launch, and it's only been a month, right? That is well over 80% of the entire player base that has launched, you know, from its launch is no longer playing the game. And this game fell, while it took a little bit longer for a lot of players to reach that, this game fell into the same problems. The story, the lore building was there, but it wasn't quite as expansive enough as those people wanted. The combat in Blust Unleashed is actually really interesting from what I've seen. I'm not going to touch this game with a 10-foot pole because they've already stolen my money twice, and I'm not going to give them to them again. But, you know, when I start seeing things like this, I'm like, damn, you know, this game has obviously a lot of potential. But the moment you get to the end game, I hear a lot of complaints of the same thing. You get to the end game, there's relatively nothing to do, right? There's nothing to do that continues the game after you've already reached the maximum level or the maximum amount of gear, right? It's not like Final Fantasy 14 where I could just switch to another class, whatever. I have to replay the game again if I wanted to do that. And that's hard, you know, which is why I think where New Genesis excels at is because you can play all of the classes under one character, and that gives you at least a little bit more longevity to the game, right? But this isn't quite there. This isn't quite there. But when we start looking at games like New World, this game came out today, you know, at the time of recording this video. And I think the biggest issues are going to be is once you've exhausted all of the world content, you know, where you've done all the side quests that are in each and every town, which they're pretty much all the same side quests, just scattered across the different towns. Once you've done the main story, the only thing that's going to be left for you eventually is going to be PvP. Right, because I don't know when they're going to be releasing new content on a more regular basis. And the biggest issue as of right now, where there's a 58% negative review rate, as according to this, is because at 700,000 people at the moment of this game's launch were trying to get into the game. You know, they were trying to get rid of the queues. So all of the negative reviews, that's my bird again. We're talking about how, you know, the queues are unhappy, but it's day one. Of course, you're going to get queues, especially with 700,000 people trying to get into your game, right? So this one's a little bit different, but I feel like in another month or two, we're going to start seeing comments when it comes to the same thing when it comes to New World. And it's going to be, there's not enough content at endgame, because while this game doesn't rush you to endgame, it actually rewards you for taking it slowly, right? Like doing all the mining and all that, because you could level at your own pace. Literally doing anything in the video game levels you up as a character, and that's cool as hell, right? I can go gather. I could be an exclusive gatherer if I wanted to in New World. and that would be really cool. But eventually I'm going to exhaust all of the available content that's PvE related, and I'm going to be left with PvP. Now, the thing about New World's PvP is that it's easily accessible. Like, there's no pay to win elements. So you're going to see a lot of people who are going to get into the PvP. They're going to get really good. They're going to understand that. And it's going to be really fun to watch PvP. But when we go back to PvE content, there's not going to be anything to do. And that's my worry for New World, right? Because that's what I foresee for the game. I'm not even going to talk about how they didn't add any of the animations that I was looking for. I mean, they kind of made some weapons look better than some, like, during the beta. But ultimately, it's more the beta, right? And that's kind of just what I got to say on that. But when I start seeing, like, the MMOs as a whole, I'm like, okay, well, if you didn't notice the trend there, every single MMO has this issue where they're like, hey, our end game is what lacks. We're going to level you up. We're going to get you to end game. And then that's, you know, figure it out from there. You know, go back, make a new character, whatever. And end game is where every game should be focusing on. That should be where people want to enjoy the game the most, because that's where you're pushing them towards, right? And even if you wanted to take older content and recycle that to make it end game worthy, that's still end game, right? It doesn't matter if you have to take a level 30 dungeon and then just add a second difficulty level on top. That's still end game. And it's probably even easier for a lot of people, because then it's just a different role that has to do that, because then it's your item resource management role or whatever the hell, balancing managers or anything like that have to do all that, right? But I feel like it's not what's going on right now. Again, New World is record breaking right now with 640,000 players, most of them probably in queue right now trying to get into the game. But with every other free-to-play MMO launch that's happened, like Fantasy Star Online 2, Sword of Legends, Blessed Unleashed, you know, and other games that have come out more recently, right? This is just the trend. This is just what's happening. It's the end game part that MMOs are missing out on. And again, I'm not sure if it's because it's the 1 year, you know, like they're still building up the game, so there technically is no end game, and they're taking their losses at the beginning, or they're just not able to focus on things, or maybe they don't understand what players want. I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of different things. I'm only here, and I originally started this channel to be entertaining. I didn't want to start like diving into these conversations, but I mean, it's the only content to do for Fantasy Star, you know? But I don't know. Let me know your thoughts, because I'm in a place right now where I'm actually playing a lot of single player games right now. I played Tales of Arise recently. That was fun. I finally got a PS5, so I got around to playing Episode Intermission, which is the Yuffie DLC for Final Fantasy VII. The ending to that blew my mind. Holy shit, that blew my mind, right? And then today we're going to get into Trails to Azure, which is part of the Legend of Heroes series, because I've been getting through that finally. And dare I say, that is going to become my favorite JRPG series of all time ever. But yeah, you know, let me know your thoughts. You know, is it just MMOs as a whole that are getting boring? Maybe it's because something needs to shake up the formula, you know, or is it just, you know, the gaming state where there's not a lot of new ideas, or they have all these new ideas, like with NGS, and they're just failing with execution, right? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But anyway, I'm going to end the video out here. This is, like I said, I'm just going to upload it as is, whatever you see it as, whatever you see it as. And yeah, stay awesome, stay beautiful. I'll see you guys next video. Peace. I'm out.